So among the various powers of the presidents till which we have learned, we have studied about the financial powers, executive powers, legislative powers, even discretionary powers we have studied. Among all the powers, the emergency powers of president are very unique, and they make the position of president very powerful. So during emergency situation, the president will acquire extraordinary powers, and he will become the highest authority in that situations. So let us see what are the emergency powers of president. Before understanding what are emergency powers, let us see what is emergency. So an emergency is a sudden unforeseen situation. So what do you mean by sudden unforeseen? That means we do not expect, we can't even imagine. Suddenly a situation arises which will create danger to the country, and we need to act immediately in such situations. Such unforeseen, that means we have not at least thought about it. If such situations arise, we should act immediately. Modern day now we have facing the problem with corona effect, same thing, but it doesn't come under national emergency. But let us see, it's an emergency situation. So in such situations, the head of the state assumes extraordinary powers. If some situation comes up with any, we don't have any thought about it, and we need to immediately address such situations. And in such situation, the head of the state, who is nothing but the president of India, will assume extraordinary powers. And the president can declare three types of emergency in the country. So these emergencies have been, in a broad way, have been categorized into three types. So one is national emergency or general emergency, second is breakdown of constitutional machinery, and third is financial emergency. See, what do you mean by national or general emergency? This national or general emergency is an emergency which is throughout the country. Okay, so this is applicable if president is declaring national emergency, it is applicable throughout the country. During situations of foreign aggressions, that means if any country has come and attacked us, or it tried to occupy us, then it comes under national emergency. Or civil war, so within the country there might be revolution, there might be an internal disturbance completely, or a danger. If it is a danger to peace and security of the country, and such situations, president will declare national emergency using article 352. See, here the president cannot do this alone, so it requires the proper advice from the parliamentary systems. So using under article 352, national emergency can be declared during external aggression, that means any other outsiders attack, or internal disturbance, there may be a danger to peace and security of the country. And what do you mean by breakdown of constitutional emergency here? See, in a particular state, it is not for throughout the country. There might be situations politically where the government might be collapsed, where constitutional emergency will arise, and in such situations the president will declare state emergencies to protect the constitution or the law and order in such situation. Due to political uncertainties, that means suddenly a state government may collapse due to loss of its majority in its assemblies, and now there won't be any constitution. So in such situations, the president rule will be imposed in such states under article 356. Even here the parliament plays a very crucial role. And financial emergency, so whenever in a country, financially, if the country is unable to meet its needs, and its credit feasibility has completely lost, that means it cannot meet its own expenditures and everything, then president under article 360 will impose financial emergency in the country. So these are the three kinds of emergencies which will be declared by president using his emergency. So now let us begin with the national emergency or general emergency. So this national emergency is declared by president when the union cabinet gives in writing. See, the cabinet ministers are very important ministers with prime minister. They are the senior most ministers among the council of ministers. So prime minister, by meeting his cabinet, will take a decision on national emergency, and the cabinet will pass the cabinet in writing will hand over the necessity for imposing emergency to the president. And after receiving this uh, information from the cabinet, the president will impose emergency, and it needs to be approved by two-third majority of both houses. So before after the cabinet approval, it is sent to the parliament, and there it will be approved with two-third majority from both houses. So once Prime Minister and his cabinet takes decision on imposing national emergency, it will be sent to parliament houses, and later it will be approved with two-third majority, and then it will be sent for the president for the issuing of orders. So this is not a bill, okay? So this is just issuing of orders. So the president will impose national emergency, and this emergency will be operational for 6 months at a stretch. So that means continuously it can be extended for a period of 6 months, and it can also be extended further, and later it requires the permission of parliament. If it exceeds more than 6 months, then again the parliament, no, as of the situation, it will again extend or it may suspend the emergency. And under what circumstances this national emergency is imposed? If the president is satisfied that a grave emergency exists with the security of India. See, after the cabinet and parliament approves the national emergency, then it is sent to president, and president will go through the these emergency circumstances and all. So what the cabinet has given to him in return. So if he is satisfied with the that a grave emergency really exists. What do you mean by satisfaction of the president here? That doesn't mean that he should feel happy that no something is going on, or not to his personal choice. The president also should come to a conclusion that there is definitely a situation of national emergency in the country, and also the written thing which is sent to president is completely constitutionally valid. So he will check whether no it is completely approved by two-third majority of the parliament, or whether it is whether it has come from cabinet or no. He will check through the constitutional validity of the thing which he received, as well as he should also feel that yes, definitely there is a serious situation in the country that requires imposition of national emergency. Or see, this general or national emergency is imposed when other country comes into war, or external country, like if you take in 1962, China has, between China and India there was a war, and Chinese have almost come into our territories. So this was a serious situation, and national emergency was imposed. And even another again in 1975 we had a national emergency. And during that time Indira Gandhi, there was a political turmoil, there was political instability in the country, and based on the internal peace and security reason, she imposed national emergency in the country. And the president, he cannot issue emergency on his own until and unless it is sent to him in written by the union cabinet. So the president should feel satisfied. I told you, satisfaction in the sense constitutional validity, and circumstances also should be very strong. And even after this, the president cannot issue directly emergency. Only after the approval he received from the union cabinet, then he can proclaim national emergency. So what are the effects of general emergency? So once this national or general emergency is imposed, so it will have certain effects. It will bring certain changes in the administrative style of the country. So what are the changes? The first and foremost changes are the fundamental rights are suspended either partially or completely, and even citizens will be restricted to go to court for enforcement of these rights. See, the fundamental rights of citizens will be partially, that means to a smaller level, or completely they will be suspended. And through a presidential order, again the powers of people to go to court, okay, to enforce these fundamental rights is also suspended. So among the fundamental rights we have right to constitutional remedies. So where in that the courts will issue writs to enforce fundamental rights. So if anybody feels that their fundamental rights are violated, they can go to court and the court will issue writs and it will come to the protection of fundamental rights. But during emergency, the right to go to court for the enforcement of fundamental rights is cancelled for all the citizens of this country by the presidential order. Even in it may be either I know you cannot go to court completely, but the fundamental rights may be partially or completely suspended. So here, even though during emergency is in operation, two articles which will give us certain kind of rights will be in operational. So that is, no person shall be punished. Article 20 cannot be suspended during these times. That what is Article 20? Under Article 20, no person shall be punished for the same offense more than once. So you cannot punish a person for the same crime he did second time. So during emergency, the police will be arresting people and they'll be keeping them behind jails and many things. The police will take the highest power there. So during such situations, they cannot arrest and punish a person second time for the same offense he did, because already he has been awarded certain punishment and he has finished it. But again, you can't award the same thing. And Article 21 cannot be even suspended, where no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty according to procedure established by law. So the parliament, through laws, it tries to restrict fundamental rights generally, and they bring ESMA Act, they bring preventive detention, many such things. During emergencies, with reference to the laws made by Parliament, under Article 21, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty. See, nobody can say that somebody is not having right to live, or nobody can say that he has no personal freedom and all. Even though personal freedom is restricted to maximum level, but nobody will be completely given freedom. But to an extent, it will be restricted, that's all. So Article 20 and 21 will be still operational, which will give this right to equality and right to freedom, basic freedom. And what about center-state relationship? So the federal spirit is completely sacrificed and unitary characters of constitution come into force. So we have discussed in the very beginning chapter what are federal characters, non-federal characters. So here we say that India is federally, quasi-federal in structure. But here during emergency, this federal spirit is completely kept aside and unitary feature of the constitution becomes so active. The central government will become so powerful and it can even make laws for the state governments. And the central even assumes financial powers. It can also change the distribution of revenues it generally gets from states. See, once the states pay taxes to the central government, again they will be redistributed between the states. Here the central government can alter this distribution of revenues between states. So central government will become so powerful. It can make laws on the subjects, it can redistribute and alter the revenue distribution of the states. And here, so that is the unitary feature of the constitution will become so powerful. Union and state legislature may be extended 1 year at a time. Suppose if the national emergency is in operation and the 5-year term of a state government and a central government has completed, even then the legislative time can be extended for a period of 1 year at a time. So not more than after 1 year, definitely there should be meeting of the central government and they should bring some, they should take decision on whether to continue or lift the emergency. So even the legislative time can be extended for a period of 1 year during the